Hi folks, thanks so much for being here, and thank you Mick for the chance to speak with this esteemed crowd tonight. And thank you also Mick for the fabulously loose brief you gave me for interpreting this presentation, where all he really shared to me, as I'm sure it was the same for the other speakers, is look, try to have some thematic tie back to the SDGs, but otherwise kind of go where the 17 minutes takes you. And I fully intend to take full liberty with that latitude, so thank you very much. I actually don't intend to talk at all about the things you just mentioned on stage before, and I apologise if I've misled you on that. I don't even want to talk about my job or any of the particular impacts that we might create at EY, and they certainly do exist. I want to talk about something that has been weighing on my mind for a long time in the kind of weird abstract annals at the back of my brain, which is asteroids. When I talk about asteroids, I promise you I'm not trying to construct some overwrought metaphor for climate change. I will not do that to you. I want to talk about actual asteroids and the disconcerting number of people that spend a lot of time worrying and strategizing about what we do about asteroids. And I only discovered this quite recently, right? I only discovered, I think about last year, that there is such a thing as World Asteroid Day, right? And it's a UN day, it's a UN charter, it's a UN treaty, there's a whole UN campaign behind asteroids, right? And it was founded by some remarkable people, including Professor Stephen Hawking, being one, and another one was Brian May, who is the guitarist from Queen, who also, as a matter of fact, turns out to be an astrophysicist, which I think is incredible. And the date, for those that are wondering, of World Asteroid Day is the 30th of June every year, right? It's International UN World Asteroid Day. And that date has been chosen because it coincides with the date of the Tunguska event, which was in 1908, I believe, in Siberia, and it's the closest thing we've had recently in terms of a major impact event. It was micro compared to what could happen, but it was the last major impact event. But I do love the fact that World Asteroid Day coincides with the end of the financial year. You know, that date where so many accountants and people sort of obsessed, thinking the world is sort of conceptually ending in their little offices, is the same day that the UN reminds us that the universe is indifferent to our delusions of grandeur, and it is hurling asteroids at us as we speak. And I really encourage you to look it up and go check out World Asteroid Day. And you will find when you do it that there is this huge ecosystem of public and private actors that really want to let you know that the asteroid is coming, right? So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So estimates vary, but the general consensus is that a civilization-ending asteroid comes to Earth once every 100 million years, right? Which sounds like a really long time, it is a really long time, but considering the fact that the last one came 66 million years ago, means that those odds start to get a little bit disconcerting when you think about them. I know that's not how statistics work, but we're within 44 million years of being a little bit due for an asteroid, right? and indeed, Stephen Hawking was of the opinion that if you really use his brilliant mind to figure out the most likely way in which civilization ends, it's an asteroid, right? You know, I know that there's a lot of work being done to kind of figure out ways to deflect asteroids, and maybe people saw that NASA, I think a couple of weeks ago, successfully trialed something there, right? The trouble is that not all these asteroids are going to be deflectable, that every now and then some beast lumbers out of the cosmos that cannot be deflected, right? And it will impact with Earth, and this will happen. So what I find so fascinating about all this, though, is not that we've kind of figured out how this party all ends, but is all the things that people think we should do about it. What people think that asteroids mean to humanity. Because as a philosophical device, an asteroid is a really cool thing. It's a really good instrument to try and think about what matters most in life, is an asteroid. And it triggers all sorts of really cool thought experiments, right? So I'm sure many of you have done them late nights out at Metro Cup on a few pale ales. It's the old question of,
not me, mate.
well, I'll come and we'll do it, right? We'll ask the question of, what would you do if...
Sometime in the next 34 million years.
Yeah, exactly. What would you do if an asteroid was going to land tomorrow? How would you spend the day? You know, who would you spend it with? Would you get as drunk as possible? I probably would. What about if the asteroid was going to land in 2 years? You know, would you pay your bills? Would you still go to work? If the asteroid was going to land in 5 years, you know, would you take your kids out of school? Would you even tell your kids? Would you even have kids? All these questions that kind of unravel from this idea of, you know, this asteroid philosophy, right? I think the lights are going off, I think, somewhat ominously. And that's cool, it's interesting, etc. But I think the really edifying thing that I find about this asteroid contemplation is the fact that all of these people that are out there thinking about it, and it will blow your mind when you see the number of eminent scientific and philosophical institutions that spend a lot of time more about asteroids, is that they quickly get away from the idea of what it means for individuals and focus on what it means for humanity at large. And it very quickly gets to one singular question, which is the question of consciousness. What does it mean for an asteroid to hit Earth if that were to wipe out all consciousness in the universe? I know this is sounding dire. I promise you, Mick, this will find its way back to the SDGs. This is great. I planned for this. Thanks, Dave. Nailed it. Timing's a bit off, but it's okay. Apologies to those people that are watching online. We've just had the lights go off, and I promise you it's not an asteroid, but I'm sure they'll come back on very soon. But I will endeavour to keep going. I'm sure you can hear me. Anyway, which is that at a personal level, the idea of an asteroid contemplating its impact for us isn't much more different to the idea of conceiving of mortality itself, right? But to a species, to a planet, it's a very different thing. And there are a lot of scientists that model out this question of, okay, so they're satisfied that it's probable that organic life exists somewhere out there in the universe, or will at some point arise somewhere in the universe. But it turns out that it's really, really improbable that consciousness will arise somewhere in the universe. That somewhere else in the universe, an organic life form will crawl out of its version of the kind of pre-Cambrian swamp and will somehow evolve to a point that it can cross over this bridge into achieving consciousness. This thing that we think defines us, but we can't define it, let alone engineer it. So we're really worried that when this thing lumbers out of space, that it wipes out all consciousness in the universe forever. And if that happens, that means that forever, the universe will never be in a position to be able to witness itself, right? Which effectively means, in the minds of many people, that the universe ceases to exist because there's no one there to witness that it ever did, right? Now, what is interesting about this is that out of this acknowledgement, that there are a lot of people, a lot of scientists, that have derived a very clarified sense of what that means for the meaning of life on Earth, which is that we have to get consciousness off this rock and out there into sufficient places in the universe so that one major catastrophic event does not wipe out the ability of the universe to witness itself, right? A lot of scientists are now thinking that's the answer. That is how humanity has to apply itself and apply its time, is getting consciousness off this rock and somehow out there. Now, believe it or not, there are a lot of people that are strategizing about how to do just that. Right? Many of you will have heard of Elon Musk and his ambition to be a multi-planetary species. That is great. He only wants to go as far as Mars, though, which is cool, but it doesn't really solve the problem for consciousness, because, of course, our sun will also die eventually, hate to break it to you, in about 2 billion years. It will become a white dwarf. It will consume the solar system. We still have the same problem, right? So we have to get to a new solar system. And believe it or not, again, there are a lot of people that are well down the path of trying to figure out how we would do that. So the good news is people are trying to believe that it is somehow possible for us to get consciousness off Earth and out there in the universe. The bad news is, and Tanya, I will meander to my point here, I promise you, I can see the panic in your eyes, is that the nearest exoplanet, shall I lose this because it's coming in and out? Yeah, I might lose it. The nearest exoplanet that people can find is many, many light years away, right? So the truth is that if we are to get in our consciousness to another exoplanet, another habitable planet orbiting a sun in that sort of Goldilocks zone, we're really not going to be scooping up collective consciousness and depositing it on some ready-made exoplanet, right? We're just going to be taking a small sliver of conscious life and providing that conscious life with everything we know about how life sustains itself on another biosphere. When we talk about this grand ambition all these scientists have to find a way to shoot consciousness out there into the cosmos, what we're really talking about is getting our little acorn of consciousness and giving it all the information that we have about how to live well, how to live in balance with the biosphere that you end up in, right? How to live in harmony with one another. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is where the trail of asteroid philosophy grinds to a sudden halt. That if you look at the World Asteroid Day and the entire ecosystem of brilliant astrophysicist minds that rotate around this question of how we get out of this planet, there's not a single view posited by that community on how we would live when we would get there. There's not even a plan to make a plan. There's not even dot points. That the whole wonderful causal chain of logic about how incredible we are as a species, that we can get ourselves to another exoplanet, the Alpha Centauri b, another galaxy or whatever, it stops. There's not even an interest in the question of how we would live sustainably when we get there. And that blows me away for so many reasons. And it is so demonstrative of how flawed our notion of human progress is. And that we can impress ourselves, we can think endlessly about getting somewhere, of growth, but we cannot even contemplate what it means to simply be in another biosphere, right? That we funnel all of this attention and emotional energy and intellect into this question of how would we mechanically get to another planet, and yet we're so ambitious of our own technological ability that we would do that, but we are so unambitious of humanity that we cannot contemplate the utopia we would build when we get there because we cannot contemplate that utopia here, right? The other thing that kills me about this is that this process of figuring out how we would defend ourselves from this theoretical this asteroid that might land in 100,000 years' time, 1,000,000 years' time, is seen as exemplary of all that is magical and wonderful in human beings. And yet, the task of trying to sustain this planet, where conscious life is generally seen by half the political community as a waste of time or as a handbrake on progress. The other thing that kills me about this, however, and which I want to bring back to this session today, is that sustainable development people, like us, all in this room, who exist for no other reason than to sustain life on Earth, therefore sustain consciousness on Earth, therefore possibly sustain consciousness in the universe, would never be so bold as to declare that we had such grand ambitions as trying to sustain conscious life in the universe. We would never say that. We are too embarrassed to say as a community that we even want to change the world. And all the speakers that came up tonight, I'm sure you probably feel that inwardly. I'm sure you would feel desperately embarrassed coming up here and asserting that your ambition extends as far as changing the entire world, right? No one does it. I come to these presentations, I've been covering them for 20 years. We are so embarrassed by our ambitions. We try and make such a small target of ourselves that we dare not ever declare the true extent of our ambitions. That we let astrophysicists talk theoretically about finding ways to project sentient life into another planet, and they are allowed to do that and not be embarrassed by it, but we are embarrassed about the idea that we just want to change this world, right? And so, what your presentation really struck me today, I really enjoyed it, for the fact that you had a slide up there that said something like stalled sustainability initiatives, right? Now, I have been to 100 of these over the years. I've never seen a slide that has been titled by that. And the gentleman's remark that came first, I completely agree with you when you said that we have to thrive upon hope. You've got to give people hope, to give them inspiration to continue in life. My concern, however, is that the corporate sustainability community here, particularly the corporate one, I should say, is high on hope. We are over-indexed on hope. And what we really lack is truth and audacity to really declare the things that we want to do, right? We never come to these. I love the idea, Mick, of sessions like this where good people connect with other good people over good issues. This from little things, big things grow. It's crucially important. But Tanya and I just recently wrote a report about the nature of corporate sustainability, and the fact is, so the headline title was that the only thing more dangerous in the absence of progress is the illusion of progress, and the sustainability industry is critically responsible for cultivating this illusion of progress. We walk away from these things buoyed by the fact that, God, there are some good people, they're giving it a go out there, I feel good about that, and that's fantastic. But people need to leave these things also with a clear sense of truth that I said I wasn't going to mention a metaphor, here comes a metaphor. We have an asteroid of our own creation lumbering towards us that is probably at best only 100 years away. And yet the idea that we would change even capitalism to deflect that asteroid is a bridge too far. You can't say it out loud, you can't say it in the television, believe me, I've tried. You get howled down as some kind of wild utopian, right? But just to characterize this asteroid for you, every single planetary indicator of biodiversity is in decline. Every single one. Every fish stock is in a period of decline. Every natural habitat is in an era of decline. Let me do an experiment for you here. Think in your head, tell me in your mind, what is the most sustainable big business on the planet? Most sustainable big brand on the planet, right? Don't say it yet. Everyone that thought Patagonia, put your hand up now, please. Right? Everyone that had a second choice, put your hand up, please, and tell me what it was.
I thought you meant sustainable in a different fashion, so I'm not going to say it.
Well, maybe someone will say Unilever, and then people run out of options. The answer is there is not a single one. There is not a single corporation on this planet that has a neutral or restorative relationship with the biosphere. There are corporations that have improved upon the prior year, that have certain areas of fantastic performance, but there's not a single organization that has solved the problem as you grow. How do you grow in a way that has a neutral or restorative relationship with the biosphere? I'm sure you three gentlemen will figure it out. But I've had my two-minute warning. But can I just say, in trying to conclude quickly, is that contemplating all this asteroid philosophy, it's funny to think through what would we know that we wouldn't try when we got to that final planet. Now, I argue we wouldn't get there and say to people, all right, get there, breed as quickly as possible and try and get a sort of critical mass of humans and then spread out over that planet. And when you get to a place that you like, draw a real imaginary line around yourself and call that a border, and then inside that border, create a flag and raise an army and only really respect or want to help people that exist inside that border, but really resent everybody outside that border. And the whole history of that planet should probably be just some kind of, zero-sum brinkmanship between nation states. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't say that. And I'm pretty sure we wouldn't say, okay, when you get there, inside that boundary, come up with a two-party parliamentary democracy of two ideologies that really hate each other, can't agree on anything, and fight over a tiny aperture of commonality. Pretty sure we wouldn't say that. And I'm pretty sure we wouldn't say, okay, when you get there, come up with a unit of tradable currency, right? And then spend all of your life competing as much as you can to get as many of those units as possible, even if it means that most other people don't get enough of those units. Right? I'm pretty sure we wouldn't do that either. So why does sustainability have to, when we know that we would never try it again on another planet, have to be so obedient to saying that we would never try and suggest that nation states are imperfect, that we should move to a model of global citizenship. We'd never say that two-party parliamentary democracy is completely broken and unable to save the world, and we were never allowed to say that we need to move to a model of degrowth and move away from capitalism. And it galls me that the Elon Musks of the world are able to be unembarrassed by the suggestion that they want to create a multi-planetary species, and we are supposed to be embarrassed about the idea that we want to just change nation states, capitalism, and the democratic process, which is quite clearly absurd. So to conclude on a statement that I really did like from your presentation, is this idea that to have a meaningful life, you have to have a meaningful problem. Well, this is the most meaningful problem that the world has. And in achieving that, we will do nothing less than figure out how to run a planet, and we may do nothing less than ensure that consciousness survives in the universe forever. So I commend you for what you do, I thank you for it, and I invite your questions afterwards. Thanks so much.